Located at Six Flags New England, Batman the Dark Knight has been a floorless roller coaster that has sort of flown under the radar for me. No one ever talks about it, and I rarely see any pictures or videos of it on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook. Well, during this past summer, I finally took my trip to Six Flags New England, and honestly, this was one of the roller coasters I was looking forward to ride. Alright, well, let's get to the review. Presentation. Situated in the quote-unquote Gotham City section of the park, Batman the Dark Knight sits as the anchor for this area and also the gateway to the park's water park. The ride's color scheme is purple, blue, black, really stands out amongst other Batman-themed coasters in the Six Flags chain. Also, it's a floorless coaster, which makes it different since Batman has almost always been used exclusively as the name for an inverted B&M at other various Six Flags parks. The station has been lightly themed with Batman, mostly just the giant posters plastered outside of the structure. Out of all the Batman coasters that I've ridden, I would say that this is the least themed. I always somewhat enjoyed the level of detail that we would see in the Batman the Ride attractions, but Batman the Dark Knight basically is themed to Batman with the name only. The ride could use a new paint job as now all the colors are starting to fade. Presentation gets a score of 5. Ride intensity. Standing 117 feet, Batman is one of the smaller floorless coasters out there, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. I was pleasantly surprised with all the forces I experienced on this ride. The drop is typical to other floorless coasters, but the loop and dive loop both provide some good forces. The zero-G roll was my favorite moment as it gives you a little airtime. The interlocking corkscrews close out the ride are actually one of the best interlocking corkscrews elements out there. I was surprised how smooth they were with minimal headbanging. Dark Knight basically flies from one inversion into the next, so it's a fast-paced ride that feels a little short. That might be because of the lack of mid-course brake run, but at the same time, it's a good thing. No mid-course brake run means this coaster can move right into the next element and keep its fast pace in action. I think Batman works as a great in-between coaster, maybe something to ride before heading on over to the more intense coasters like Superman the Ride and Wicked Cyclone. I'm gonna award Batman a score of 7 for ride intensity. Fun factor. I think with Batman the Dark Knight, you know what you're getting into. It's a fun looping coaster, nothing more, nothing less. Every inversion does its job by providing some good forces with a minimal headbanging. If I visited the park on a less busy day, I could see myself riding this coaster a few times in a row. I only got to ride this roller coaster once, so I took a front row ride. I would assume that the back row would give you some good whip during that first drop, and also the transitions in and out of each inversion. Overall, I think it's a pretty enjoyable coaster that gets an 8 rating for the fun factor. Originality. B&M kinda has a formula they follow with most of their looping roller coasters. After the drop, you start off with a loop, followed by a dive loop, Immelman type inversion, maybe throw in a zero-G roll about the midpoint of the ride. Then the second half is almost always going to feature interlocking corkscrews. Batman the Dark Knight sticks to this typical formula, but lacks one thing, the mid-course brake run. Well, that's actually a good thing as I said before, because if the ride had one, it would make the second half crawl and honestly would be pointless because, well, the ride isn't that long. Overall, a score of 5 sounds about right for originality. Ride smoothness. I was a little nervous before riding Batman, mainly because I was afraid it was going to give me a headache. Well, I'm glad to report that Batman is a pretty smooth roller coaster with minimal headbanging. Honestly, I really didn't experience any headbanging, and also really surprised with how smooth the corkscrews were. Usually they are the rough spots on a floorless coaster, but Batman seems to fly through them with ease. I never really experienced any rattle, so I would say this roller coaster is pretty smooth. A score of 9 sounds good for ride smoothness. Okay, the final score comes to 6.8, which lands us in the average ranking. Batman the Dark Knight is a good, solid, all-around looping coaster. It won't blow you away, and I highly doubt it will become your favorite roller coaster at Six Flags New England, but it serves its job well. It's a good roller coaster that fits in nicely with New England's lineup. It's nowhere near the high caliber of Wicked Cyclone or Superman, but it's not in the bottom tiers with Riddler's Revenge, Goliath, and the various family coasters. My personal rating is going to be a 7. As I said many times already, it's a good coaster, just not a great one. It's completely harmless. Feel free to ride this without any worry of a headache. Just don't expect it to knock your socks off. Alright, that's my review of Batman the Dark Knight. What do you think of this floorless roller coaster by B&M? Let me know in the comments below. Go check out some of my other reviews. I have reviewed all the other major roller coasters at Six Flags New England, so make sure to check them out. As always, please subscribe so you don't miss out on more great content coming your way by XscreamThrills.